The emergency alarm blared through Space Station Delta's corridors, its harsh sound jolting Commander Tom Reed from his late-night coffee break. The station's AI spoke in its calm, measured voice. Unknown vessel detected. Severe damage. Life signs failing. Tom rushed to the control room, his boots echoing against the metal floor. The massive window before him revealed the vast darkness of space, broken only by the dim glow of distant stars and a small drifting ship that looked like it had been through hell. "Status report," he called out to his crew. "Ship's barely holding together, sir," answered Jack from his monitor. "Whatever hit it hard. We're picking up one life sign, but it's fading fast." Tom watched the ship drift closer. Its hull was scarred with massive claw marks, and parts of it seemed to have been melted by some kind of acid. This wasn't normal damage from space rocks or pirates. This was something else. "Bring it in," Tom ordered. "Alert medical bay." The alien members of his crew suddenly grew very still. An older alien with blue scales stepped forward, his 4 eyes wide with fear. "Commander Reed, with all respect, we must scan that ship more carefully. The damage pattern, it matches the Shadow Stalker attacks." Tom had heard stories about the Shadow Stalkers. Every species in the galaxy feared them. Massive predators that hunted in the dark of space, known for their black scales and deadly intelligence. Most people thought they were just stories to scare children, but the fear in his alien crew's eyes told a different story. "Whatever's in there is dying," Tom said firmly. "We're bringing it in." The rescue team met him at the emergency airlock. They wore their heaviest protective suits, weapons ready just in case. The damaged ship groaned as the station's arms pulled it into the docking bay. The rescue team moved in first, their lights cutting through the darkness of the broken ship. Tom followed close behind, his heart pounding. The ship's interior was cold, with walls covered in strange markings that looked like they were made by claws. "Life sign ahead," whispered one of the team members. "In the cargo hold." They found the cargo hold door torn open from the inside. Tom was the first to step through, and what he saw made him freeze. Lying on the floor was the largest predator he had ever seen. It was easily 20 feet long, with scales as black as space itself. Strange patterns that looked like stars shifted across its skin, glowing weakly. 2 rows of eyes lined its serpentine head, and curved claws longer than Tom's arm tipped each of its 6 limbs. It was a Shadow Stalker, and it was real. The creature's eyes focused on Tom, and to everyone's surprise, it didn't attack. Instead, it made a soft, pulsing light pattern across its scales, like a message written in starlight. "Sir," one of the security team shouted, "step back. That's a Shadow Stalker. They're the most dangerous predators in the galaxy." But Tom noticed something else. The creature was wounded, badly. Bright blue blood pooled beneath it, and its breathing was labored. Despite its fearsome appearance, there was intelligence in those eyes. Pain. And something else. Hope. Tom made his decision. Medical team to the cargo bay. Now. The station erupted in chaos. His alien crew members begged him to space the creature. The human crew thought he was crazy, but Tom stood his ground. "We are a Federation station," he announced over the protests. "We help those in need. I don't care if it's a human, an alien, or even a Shadow Stalker. If something comes to us hurt and asking for help, we help. That's what humans do." The creature's lights pulsed again, weaker this time. As the medical team cautiously approached, Tom could have sworn he saw gratitude in those alien eyes. "You're safe now," he told it, not knowing if it could understand. "We'll help you." As the medical team worked to stabilize the creature, Tom watched the steady pulse of lights across its scales. He had a feeling this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a simple rescue mission. He was right. This moment would change the galaxy forever, though not in the way anyone expected. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't a predator with sharp claws. It's a human with a kind heart. Medical Officer Kate Barnes had treated many strange creatures in her years on Space Station Delta, but nothing like this. The Shadow Stalker lay on the reinforced medical bay floor, its massive body barely fitting in the space. The creature's star-like patterns still pulsed weakly across its obsidian scales. "I need those blood test results now," she called out to her assistant. The rest of her medical team had refused to help, leaving only the humans to treat the feared predator. Commander Tom Reed stood nearby, watching. "How is it doing?" "Not good," Kate answered, checking her scanner. "Its blood chemistry is unlike anything I've seen. We're basically guessing at treatments." The creature's eyes followed their movements. Kate noticed how it carefully kept its deadly claws tucked close to its body, despite its obvious pain. This wasn't the mindless killer from the stories. Suddenly, the medical bay doors slid open. 3 alien diplomats stormed in, led by Ambassador Rel, his blue scales dark with anger. "This is unacceptable," Rel shouted. "You are harboring the most dangerous predator known to the galaxy. The Council demands its immediate termination." Tom stepped forward. "This is my station, Ambassador. The creature came to us for help." "Help?" Rel laughed bitterly. "Shadow Stalkers don't need help. They hunt, they kill, they destroy. That's all they do." The creature on the floor made a soft humming sound. Kate watched in amazement as patterns of light danced across its scales, forming complex, repeating sequences. "Look," she pointed. "It's trying to communicate." "It's trying to trick you," Rel warned. "That's what they do before they strike." But Kate had spent hours observing the creature. She grabbed a light pad from her medical kit and held it up. Slowly, carefully, she made it flash in a simple pattern, 3 short, 1 long. The Shadow Stalker's eyes widened. After a moment, it repeated the pattern with its scales, then added another sequence. "It's intelligent," Kate breathed. "Really intelligent. These aren't random lights, it's a language." Tom moved closer, fascinated. "Can you understand what it's saying?" "Not yet, but look how it matches patterns. It's learning, adapting. It wants to communicate with us." Ambassador Rel slammed his hand on a nearby table. "You're all fools. When it kills everyone on this station, their deaths will be on your hands." The Shadow Stalker turned its massive head toward Rel. Everyone tensed, expecting an attack. Instead, it slowly, deliberately, laid its head on the floor and closed its eyes. Kate understood. It's showing submission. It knows we're afraid, and it's trying to appear less threatening. "Or it's waiting for us to lower our guard," Rel growled. Tom had seen enough. "Ambassador, this creature has shown no aggression. Until that changes, it stays under my protection. That's final." After the angry diplomats left, Kate noticed the creature watching her with its multiple eyes. She held up the light pad again. "You need a name," she said softly. "We can't keep calling you the creature or Shadow Stalker." She made the light pad glow with a gentle, continuous pulse. "How about Midnight?" The creature, Midnight, copied the pulsing light pattern, then added a series of quick, bright flashes that almost looked like twinkling stars. "I think it likes it," Tom said, smiling. Kate nodded, already planning her next steps. "If we can decode its light language, we might learn why everyone fears them so much. There has to be more to this story." "Keep working on it," Tom ordered. "But be careful. The ambassadors won't give up easily." As if understanding, Midnight's scales rippled with a pattern that reminded Kate of falling stars. She made a note in her medical log. "Patient shows clear signs of sophisticated communication and emotional intelligence." Traditional stories of shadow stalkers as mindless predators appear to be greatly exaggerated. She didn't write down her other observation, that maybe humans weren't the only ones in the galaxy who had been misunderstood and feared because they were different. What they didn't know was that this was just the beginning. In the days to come, their choice to help rather than fear would change not just their lives, but the entire galaxy's understanding of both humanity and shadow stalkers forever. 3 days had passed since Midnight arrived on Space Station Delta. Commander Tom Reed sat cross-legged on the medical bay floor, holding up a light board covered in different colored buttons. Across from him, Midnight's massive form curled in what Tom had learned was a relaxed position. "Let's try again," Tom said, pressing a sequence of lights. Blue, red, blue, green. Midnight's scales lit up, copying the pattern perfectly. Then the creature added its own sequence: blue, red, blue, green, followed by a rippling wave of silver lights. "It's not just copying anymore," Kate said from her observation post. "It's building on the patterns, adding meaning." She had spent every free moment documenting their growing light language. Tom pressed another sequence. This time, Midnight's response came with a deep, musical hum that made the medical equipment rattle slightly. "That's new," Tom said, excited. Kate checked her instruments. "The sound patterns are as complex as the light ones. It's not just communicating, it's teaching us its language." Their breakthrough came moments later. Tom had just finished another light sequence when Midnight's scales suddenly displayed an image, a moving pattern of lights that looked exactly like Space Station Delta. "Did you see that?" Tom jumped to his feet. It created a picture. Kate was already recording. The light patterns aren't just a simple code, they're a full visual language. Midnight's scales shifted again, showing a scene of its damaged ship, then the rescue. The images were crude but clear, like watching a story told in moving constellations. But their excitement was cut short as the station's alarm began blaring. "Commander Reed to the bridge immediately," the AI announced. "Priority message from Federation Command." Tom rushed to the bridge, leaving Kate with Midnight. The main screen showed Admiral White, his face grim. "Commander Reed," the Admiral began, "we've received multiple complaints about your guest. The Galactic Council has ordered the immediate termination of the Shadow Stalker." Tom felt his heart sink. "Sir, with all due respect, that would be a huge mistake. The creature is intelligent, peaceful. It's teaching us things about space and science that we never knew." "It's teaching you things because that's how they hunt, Commander," the Admiral said. "They learn about their prey before they strike. You have 6 hours to comply with the termination order." The screen went dark. Tom stood there, his mind racing. In just 3 days, he had learned more about the universe from Midnight than in his entire career. He couldn't just kill it. Back in medical, he found Kate and Midnight engaged in rapid light pattern exchanges. "Tom," Kate called out excitedly, "you won't believe this. Midnight just explained why its ship was damaged. It wasn't attacked by other predators. It was running from them. There's some kind of war going on out there." Midnight's scales showed images of other shadow stalkers, but these looked different. Their patterns were sharp, aggressive. Then came images of destroyed worlds, fleeing ships, and finally, a hidden place somewhere in deep space. "It's not just running," Tom realized. "It's trying to warn us." Kate nodded. "The shadow stalkers we've all heard about, the ones everyone fears. They're only one group. Midnight's people are different. They've been trying to stop the hunters, but nobody would listen. Nobody would even try to understand." Tom looked at Midnight, who was now displaying an image of Earth alongside other peaceful worlds. The message was clear: protect, not destroy. "We have orders to terminate," Tom said quietly. Midnight's scales went dark for a moment. Then, slowly, they lit up to show an image of Tom helping it from the damaged ship, followed by Kate treating its wounds. "It's reminding us of who we are," Kate whispered, "what we stand for." Tom straightened his uniform. "Get Midnight ready to move. We got 6 hours before they expect us to kill it." "What are you going to do?" "Something very human," Tom smiled grimly. "I'm going to break the rules to do what's right." As if understanding, Midnight's scales lit up with a pattern they'd never seen before, a brilliant display that looked like a sunrise over Earth. They had 6 hours to save not just Midnight, but maybe the future of two species. And somehow, Tom knew this was exactly why humans had gone to the stars in the first place. Space Station Delta shook violently, throwing Commander Tom Reed against the corridor wall. Red emergency lights flashed everywhere. "Status report," he shouted into his comm unit. 3 warships just dropped out of hyperspace. Jack's voice crackled through the speaker. "They're not Federation. Looks like Battle Hunter-class vessels. They're demanding we hand over the Shadow Stalker." Tom sprinted toward the medical bay where they kept Midnight. He had to dodge panicking crew members running in the opposite direction. The station shook again. "Shield status," he called out. "Holding at 60%, but they're not trying to destroy us," Jack replied. "They want to board." Tom reached the medical bay just as Kate finished unhooking Midnight from the medical monitors. The massive creature's scales were flashing rapid warning patterns. "They found me." Midnight communicated through light patterns they'd learned to read. "The hunters are here." Another blast rocked the station. This time, the lights flickered and died, leaving only Midnight's bioluminescence and the emergency strips to light the room. Multiple hull breaches on levels 3 through 5. The station AI announced. "Warning, unauthorized entry detected." Kate checked her tablet. "They're cutting through the emergency doors. They'll be here in minutes." Midnight's scales showed images of the hostile Shadow Stalkers, the ones who had attacked its ship. The patterns shifted to show destruction, death. "We need to get you out of here," Tom started, but Midnight rose to its full height, towering over them. "No," its lights spelled out clearly. "I protect friends." The medical bay doors burst open. 3 figures in heavy armor rushed in, weapons raised. But they weren't the only threat. Behind them, a dark shape moved. Another Shadow Stalker, but this one's patterns glowed blood red. "Step away from the traitor," the Red Shadow Stalker commanded in perfect English, its voice a harsh growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Tom stood his ground. "This is a Federation station. You have no authority here." The Red Shadow Stalker laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your Federation already abandoned you, human. They ordered this traitor's death themselves." "The only traitors," Midnight's lights flashed defiantly, "are those who hunt instead of protect." The Red Shadow Stalker lunged without warning, its claws extended. But Midnight was faster. It swept Tom and Kate behind its massive body and met the attack head-on. The 2 creatures clashed in a fury of claws and flashing lights. Where the Red Shadow Stalker was all rage and sharp movements, Midnight fought with precision and control. The armored soldiers raised their weapons, but they couldn't get a clear shot with the 2 beings locked in combat. Tom grabbed Kate's arm. "The emergency protocols. Remember what we planned." She nodded and ran to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. Warning lights began flashing. "Hull breach imminent in medical bay," the AI announced. "Emergency containment activated." The Red Shadow Stalker turned its head at the announcement. Just the distraction Midnight needed. With a move faster than Tom's eyes could follow, Midnight wrapped its body around its opponent and slammed it into the far wall. "Now," Tom shouted. Kate hit the final command. Emergency barriers slammed down around the medical bay's walls as the main doors sealed shut. Then, with a massive whoosh, the bay's atmosphere vented into space. The armored soldiers were caught off guard, tumbling toward the breach. But Tom and Kate were ready, magnetically locked to the floor. Midnight held firm, its claws anchored deep in the metal floor, still restraining the other Shadow Stalker. Through the chaos, Tom saw something amazing. Midnight's scales weren't showing anger or hatred. Instead, they displayed the same pattern over and over. A simple image of protection, of standing between danger and those who needed help. When it was over, when emergency force fields finally sealed the breach, the armored soldiers were gone. The Red Shadow Stalker lay unconscious, contained by Midnight's grip, and every camera on the station had recorded a Shadow Stalker defending humans instead of hunting them. "Send the footage to every Federation channel," Tom ordered. catching his breath. The galaxy needs to see this. Midnight's scales rippled with a pattern they now recognized as gratitude, then shifted to show stars and distant worlds. More will come, its lights warned. Let them, Tom replied firmly. They'll learn what happens when you threaten a station under human protection. For the first time, they saw Midnight make a pattern that looked remarkably like a human smile. In the station's high-security holding cell, the red Shadow Stalker lay unconscious behind energy barriers. Commander Tom Reed watched as Kate treated Midnight's wounds from the fight. The Federation Council is in chaos, Tom said, checking his tablet. The footage of you protecting us is playing on every channel. Some still want you dead, but others are starting to ask questions. Midnight's scales flickered with a pattern they'd come to recognize as sadness. Then, slowly, images began forming across its body. Not just patterns this time, but detailed pictures that moved like a living movie. Look, Kate pointed excitedly. It's showing us their history. The images showed a peaceful world of endless oceans under 3 moons. Shadow stalkers swam through deep waters, their light patterns creating beautiful songs in the darkness. They were teachers, explorers, and guardians of younger species taking their first steps into space. Your people weren't always hunters, Tom said quietly. We were protectors, Midnight's lights spelled out. We guided, we helped, until they came. The next images made both humans step back. Massive warships appeared in the peaceful scene, bringing weapons that turned oceans to steam. The Shadow Stalkers fought back, using their natural abilities to protect their world, but they were outnumbered. Who attacked you? Kate asked. Instead of answering directly, Midnight showed them the face of a familiar species, the same race as Ambassador Rel. The Concordat, Tom breathed. But why? More images flowed across Midnight's scales. The Concordat had discovered that Shadow Stalkers could survive in deep space, could track ships through hyperspace, could communicate across vast distances with their light patterns. They wanted to turn them into living weapons. Some of us broke under torture. Midnight's lights, dimmed with shame, became what they wanted. Hunters, killers. Those who refused went into hiding. The red Shadow Stalker stirred in its cell, its own scales flickering weakly. Midnight moved closer to the barrier. My brother, its lights pulsed softly. One of many they twisted into weapons. Tom looked between the 2 Shadow Stalkers. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see the similarities in their markings. But where Midnight's patterns flowed like gentle waves, the red ones were sharp and jagged. That's why you came here, Kate realized. You're not just running. You're trying to save them. Midnight's scales showed a hidden place deep in unexplored space, a sanctuary where free Shadow Stalkers work to rescue and heal their corrupted brothers and sisters. But the images also showed Concordat ships closing in, hunting for the sanctuary. How many of your people are still free? Tom asked. Few, Midnight answered. Less than 1,000. Once, we were millions. The red Shadow Stalker suddenly surged against the barrier, its scales blazing with hatred. But underneath the rage, Tom saw something else in its patterns. Pain, confusion, like someone fighting against their own mind. Can they be helped? Kate asked softly. The ones they turned into weapons. Midnight's answer came in both lights and images. Shadow Stalkers working together, using their combined light patterns to heal damaged minds. With time, with patience, with understanding. Tom straightened up. The Concordat is coming. They'll follow the hunter ships here. We must go. Midnight's lights pulsed urgently. We endanger you. No, Tom said firmly. Humanity has been looking for its place in the galaxy. Maybe this is it. Maybe we're meant to help restore balance. Kate nodded. The Concordat broke your people by forcing them to be what they weren't. We'll help by letting you be what you truly are. Midnight's scales rippled with a complex pattern they'd never seen before. The closest translation they could guess was hope. In its cell, the red Shadow Stalker had gone quiet, its own scales showing tiny flickers of its original peaceful patterns. First, Tom said, we need to show the galaxy the truth, not just about what happened to your people, but about what the Concordat is still doing. What none of them knew was that this truth would shake the foundations of galactic society and put humanity on a collision course with the most powerful forces in known space. The small fleet of human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates Midnight had provided. Commander Tom Reed stood on the bridge of his rescue vessel, staring in awe at the sight before them. Hidden inside a massive nebula was a world unlike any they'd seen before. 3 moons hung in a perfect triangle around a planet of deep blue oceans. The entire system was wrapped in swirling clouds that hid it from normal scanners. Beautiful, Kate whispered from beside him. In the month since leaving Space Station Delta, she hadn't left Midnight's side. The red shadow stalker, now called Dawn after showing signs of recovery, floated outside their ship, its scales glowing with recognition. Home. Midnight's lights pulsed softly as it glided alongside their ship. The last safe place. 6 human ships had answered Tom's call for help. Not official Federation vessels, but independent captains who'd seen the truth about the Shadow Stalkers and chosen to stand with them. Their sensors suddenly blared warnings. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Jack called from his station. Concordat signatures. Tom's heart sank as he counted the emerging warships. 20, 30, 40. They just kept coming. They followed Dawn's tracker. Midnight's lights flashed in alarm. They knew we would lead them here. The sanctuary's defenses activated, hidden platforms emerging from the nebula clouds, powered by the combined light energy of thousands of shadow stalkers. But Tom could see they wouldn't be enough against this many ships. All vessels, defensive positions. Tom ordered, protect those platforms. The space around them erupted in chaos. Concordat ships launched waves of fighters, while their capital ships moved to surround the planet. The 6 human ships, small but fast, darted between them, drawing fire away from the sanctuary's defenses. Then something amazing happened. From the oceans below, hundreds of shadow stalkers rose into space, but they didn't attack. Instead, they formed massive patterns with their bodies and lights, creating shields of pure energy that deflected the Concordat's weapons. They're not weapons, Kate realized, watching the display. They're guardians. This is what they were meant to be. A massive Concordat battleship pushed through the defense screen, its weapons charging. But before it could fire, Dawn shot forward, its scales blazing not with red rage, but with its original, peaceful patterns. More shadow stalkers emerged from the fighting ranks of the Concordat fleet, ones like Dawn who had been used as weapons. Seeing their ancient home, witnessing their people's true nature, something broke free in their minds. The conditioning is breaking, Kate shouted excitedly. The sanctuary, it's not just a hiding place. The combined light patterns of all the free shadow stalkers, it's healing them. Tom watched as more and more shadow stalkers turned away from the Concordat, their scales shifting from battle red to their natural colors. The Concordat fleet's formation began to break. Then came the voice, not through comm channels, but carried on waves of light from the combined patterns of thousands of shadow stalkers. We are not your weapons. We are the guardians of peace. We are the protectors of the young. We are the light in the dark between stars. The message repeated in every language, impossible to ignore, impossible to deny. With each repetition, more shadow stalkers broke free of their conditioning. The Concordat admiral's voice crackled over the comm. You cannot undo decades of programming with pretty lights and ancient memories. No, Tom answered, watching Dawn join its people in the great pattern. But we can remind them of who they really are. And sometimes, that's enough. Below them, the sanctuary world's oceans began to glow as more shadow stalkers emerged, not to fight, but to add their lights to the message of peace. The nebula itself seemed to pulse with their combined power. The Concordat fleet started to retreat, their weapon slaves turned back into guardians before their eyes. But Tom knew this wasn't over. They'll be back. Midnight's lights pulsed as it moved beside their ship. With more ships, more weapons. Let them come, Tom said firmly. Humanity knows the truth now, and we stand with the Guardians. As if in answer, the Shadow Stalkers rearranged themselves, forming a pattern both new and ancient, their symbol for alliance, with the human ships protected at its heart. 1 month after the battle at the Sanctuary, Commander Tom Reed stood before the Galactic Federation Council. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives from 1,000 worlds, all watching in tense silence. Behind him floated Midnight, its scales glowing with calm, steady patterns. Kate stood on his other side, holding a data crystal that contained the truth that would change everything. We have been deceived. Tom's voice rang through the chamber, not just about the Shadow Stalkers, but about the very foundations of our galactic peace. The massive screens around the chamber came to life, showing the evidence they'd gathered. Shadow Stalkers teaching young species to navigate the stars, ancient records of them, protecting trading routes. Then, the brutal truth of what the Concordat had done to them. Lies, shouted the Concordat ambassador. These creatures are natural killers. Midnight moved forward, its massive form casting shifting patterns of light across the chamber walls. When it spoke through its light patterns, the universal translators carried its words to every ear. We were the first to reach the stars in this part of the galaxy. We chose to guide rather than conquer, to protect rather than destroy, until the Concordat tried to turn us into what they feared we could become. More evidence played across the screens, secret facilities where Shadow Stalkers were tortured and programmed, transformed into living weapons. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. But humanity, Midnight continued, its lights pulsing warmly, showed us another way. When everyone else saw a monster, they saw a person asking for help. They reminded us of who we truly are. Dawn glided into the chamber, along with dozens of other formerly enslaved Shadow Stalkers. Their scales no longer showed the harsh red of weapons, but the gentle, flowing patterns of their true nature. The Concordat's lies are finished, Tom declared. But we're not here for revenge. We're here to restore balance. Kate stepped forward, inserting the data crystal into the Council's systems. We propose the Guardian Accord, a new alliance between humanity and the Shadow Stalkers, dedicated to protecting the rights of all species and preventing any power from enslaving another. The chamber exploded in argument. Some species sided with the Concordat, crying out about the dangers. Others, remembering ancient histories of Shadow Stalker protection, spoke in favor. Then something unprecedented happened. Every Shadow Stalker in the chamber began to glow, their patterns synchronizing. The light show that followed was beyond beautiful. It was their entire history, shown not in words or pictures, but in pure emotion and memory that everyone in the chamber could feel. They felt the joy of teaching young species to fly among the stars. They felt the pain of betrayal and torture. They felt the spark of hope when humans first showed kindness. They felt the power of choice, to protect rather than harm, even after all they'd suffered. When it ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the chamber. The council president stood slowly. We have been complicit in a great injustice through our fear and ignorance. The question now is, how do we make it right? Tom smiled. By doing what humanity does best, taking a chance on understanding instead of fear. The vote that followed was nearly unanimous. The Guardian Accord was approved, with humans and Shadow Stalkers appointed as its first joint leaders. Later, standing on the observation deck of the Sanctuary world, Tom watched ships from across the galaxy arrive. Species coming to learn from the Shadow Stalkers once again, this time without fear. Did you know it would end this way? He asked Midnight, who floated beside him watching the ships arrive. Midnight's scales showed the pattern for laughter. No, we hoped for survival. You humans gave us back our purpose. Kate joined them, holding new translation devices based on Shadow Stalker light patterns. The first Guardian Academy opens next week. Students from 50 different species already enrolled. Above them, Dawn led a group of younger shadow stalkers in practice formations, their lights painting the sky with promises of protection and peace. Humanity found its place in the galaxy, Tom said softly. Not as conquerors or even explorers, but as bridge builders. The ones who see past fear to find friendship. Midnight's final pattern was simple but perfect. It showed a human hand and a shadow stalker's claw, joined together, with stars spreading out from their touch into infinity. Sometimes the bravest thing in the universe isn't facing your fears, it's choosing to understand what you fear. And in that understanding, humans prove themselves to be the galaxy's greatest hope for peace.